Hello, my name is Temitope Olodo, and it's a great honor to be invited by the leadership of your organization to speak to you today about terrorism in West Africa. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you on Zoom because I have an emergency assignment that I have to deal with, and that's the reason why I've decided to put this video together. It is just less than a 10 seconds video looking at terrorism in West Africa. So share this. Let me share this slide with you, which will give you a better understanding of the issue of terrorism in Africa. And I hope you really enjoy it. So we're going to be talking about terrorism in West Africa. And as you know, there are 16 countries in West Africa. Most of them you could see on the map. My name is Temitope Olodo. I'm a preventive terrorism consultant, author, and president of African Security Forum, and my details will be at the end of the slide. So we're talking of countries like Mali, Niger, Chad, Nigeria, and we have challenges of terrorism and violence and security in most of those places. And in fact, the former uh, chief of army staff in Ghana came out recently in a few days. You can Google it, and he actually did say that Ghana might be facing terrorism challenges in the near future. So almost most of the West African countries are having challenges with terrorism. We're having challenges with terrorism, and it's my hope that we can address and look at why they are having these challenges. So, and that's me. Now, in our introduction, just like I mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about terrorism in West Africa, drivers of terrorism in West Africa, solutions and recommendations. So we'll be talking about that. And just like I mentioned earlier, when you look at the challenges of terrorism in Africa, you really see that we have a serious challenge here. And the challenge is that there is a lot of violence incident with jihadis coming from the Sahel, and that has really affected West Africa. You could see all those arrows as they are going into Bamako, they're going into Benin, they're going into Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and there's a serious issues going on. And to counter those issues, we have what we call the multinational task force, which is the 5 countries within the West African ECOWAS bit with a bit of the French colonies, old French colonies, and also France has actually started their own joint force, which is called the 5 Sahel. And I know some of my colleagues will be talking about that, in terms of some of the challenges in East Africa and also those countries, because some of those countries, remember, even though they are in the Sahel, they are not part of the West African region. So the issue now is that we need to really understand what terrorism is, because if we don't understand terrorism, then we can't actually talk about terrorism in West Africa. Terrorism is simply the unlawful use of force and violence against persons and properties, for the purpose of intimidating, coercing a government and civilian population and segment for furtherance of political and social objectives. So if we really follow the strict definition of terrorism as it's highlighted here, you find out that anybody that uses threats, against a community, a group, is actually committing an offense of terrorism. Anybody that destroys people's property or threatens to destroy people's property. So when people say, "Oh, we're going to host our flag, we're starting a new country, and if you don't agree to it, we're going to use violence to obtain what we want," they are committing the act of terrorism. And it's important to highlight that there are 2 types of terrorism, from this context of thought. Many people have come up to talk about different types of terrorism. They talk about national terrorism and transnational terrorism. I prefer to divide it into domestic terrorism and international terrorism. Domestic terrorism is terrorism where it is local within the terrorism, the intimidation, the coercing, the threat is within the country, and there's no external influence. So there are groups, there are separatist groups that are calling they want to leave a particular country and they are using violence and intimidation. You could say those are domestic, but it becomes international when there are foreign actors involved, foreign people, foreign-based groups that are funding, supporting those groups, or they are actually coming from outside to attack the group. Now, what are the causes of terrorism in West Africa? I would like to just mention four, and I'll discuss that later. You could talk about the lack of social economic opportunities are one of the reasons why people might want to turn into terrorism. There is marginalization and discrimination. People say they've been marginalized as an ethnic group, they've been marginalized as a group, they've been marginalized as a party, and because of that, they decide to take up arms, and get into terrorism. Poor governance. If there's poor governance, ungoverned space, unresolved conflict, those things can lead to terrorism. But let's be very, very clear. We can actually tackle this narrative because socio-economic opportunities. You could get in touch with your member of parliament and speak to them about the challenges you are having, socio-economic challenges in your area, and they can deal with it. That's what you've elected them for. They are there to represent you. So there's no reason to resort to violence in order to get there. And if you feel you'll be marginalized, you could go to the court. You can seek the intervention of the relevant agencies to make sure that your right is not being trampled upon. So there's no need to get into terrorism. And poor governance, if somebody has performed purely, remove them. Use the ballot or the paper to remove them. There's no reason to actually go into terrorism. So you could see from what I've been talking about that even though those are some of the narrative that be highlighted as the causes of terrorism in West Africa and in other areas, actually those can be countered. You can counter those narratives, because if you're talking of unresolved conflict, you could have mediation to resolve it. If somebody kills your cow, you can have compensation to resolve it. There's no need for you to go back and go and kill 7, 8 individuals in that community. Then they will have a reprisal attack. So you don't need that. So, as I was saying, there are different techniques that have been adopted by some of these terrorists to cause havoc, and I know that Enoch and some of my other brothers there will be talking about different types of techniques that are being used, to cause havoc. So they use hijacking, they use kidnapping, they use bombing, they use assassination, they use armed assault, barricade, and we've seen that all over West Africa. Those methods are being used in different places to cause havoc, as you could, and I'll be talking about that. But if you are interested in knowing more about preventing terrorism and how to prevent it, I've actually written 8 books. I've written books on religious security, how to keep worship place safe. I've written a book on family emergency plan, how you yourself as a family can plan against terrorism and all kind of violence, extremism that might be happening, whether you're in Kenya, whether you're in Nairobi, you're in Bamako, whether you are in Sierra Leone, wherever you are within East Africa, West Africa, South Africa. These books are very, very relevant, and my email address is at the back. You can send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help you, or you can go to Amazon and purchase those books. But let's talk about, like I mentioned earlier, some of the example of terrorist attacks in West Africa. So we have the one in Bamako where 8 security officers were actually killed in Burkina Faso. I apologize. They went in there and they caused havoc, and that is the picture there. You see what happened in Mali. They burst into an hotel in Mali, and more than 20 people were killed. We talk about the Chibok girls. It's 7 years of the Chibok girls, and yet 100 plus girls have not yet been recovered. That is the problem with terrorism. Some of them have been married out. Some of them have become wives of kidnappers. Some of them have actually died as a cause, and their parents have also died. And to yesterday marked their 7 years of being in captivity. 100 plus have not yet been recovered. So what is the solution to the West African terrorism challenges? I would say, because I'm a former civil servant from the Home Office, from the UK, working in the Office for Security and Counterterrorism, and also being an assistant director of UK Border Agency. I will talk from my experience in the UK, and I'll say if you have a good strategy that has preventive measures in it, that have protective measures in it, that have pursuing measures in it, and have preparatory measure in it, then you'll be okay. What do I mean by preventive? Go out there, find out people that are being radicalized, bring them in, de-radicalize those individuals, have protective measures in place so that people who are known to have terrorist activities and you have arrested and jailed, don't let them go into certain areas, have protective measures, have things, structures, what we call access control, have, systems in place to ensure CCTV, all those things, to ensure that people cannot, come in and just do whatever they want to do. And I'm not just talking about putting dummy CCTV, put interactive CCTV that you can watch, as you could see for what happened in Kenya, where those CCTV were there in those hotels, but nobody actually did look at them, because if they had looked at them, they would have been able to identify that they were being surveyed. Surveillance was going on. Pursue, go after those people that are not ready to change. Go after them. Don't be reactive. Be proactive in using intelligence to go after those individuals. Prepare the community and society, to be resilient against terrorism, but also to know what to do during the period of an accident or an attack. That is very important. My name is Temitope Olodo. As I mentioned before, I'm a preventive terrorism consultant and author. My email address is there. My website is there, www.trans.org. You could actually visit my website. You can also visit the African Security Forum website. We have a WhatsApp group that you could join if you're a security consultant, a security practitioner or officer, and you want to know more. My brother Enoch and a lot of other people on this platform are already on African Security Forum. We have a WhatsApp group. Send a message to my brother or send a message to me, and I will add you to it with your number. So that is the short form of my presentation today, and I'm very pleased that you've invited me to come and speak to you, and I hope this presentation meets you well and you do enjoy it. God bless you all and enjoy the rest of the program.